Welcome to the Safe Money Retirement Show with certified financial fiduciary Tim Wood.
This is all about helping people. That is why I am so passionate about this, because it's literally getting up every day and helping people plan for the rest of their lives. Make a plan, because I promise you're going to sleep better.
Tim is a retirement and income planning expert, best-selling author, and the founder of SafeMoneyRetirement.com. Tim focuses on wealth management, retirement income, tax and long-term care planning, and so much more.
Let's sit down. Let's make sure we have got a holistic plan. We're not just looking at one thing.
And now, the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood.
And we welcome you into this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show. Alongside certified financial fiduciary Tim Wood, my name's Kevin McAlpin. Of course, Tim and I thank you so much for being with us on the show, and we hope you're having a wonderful day. Coming up on the program this week, much like your house needs a solid foundation, so do your finances. So we'll discuss some of the key elements to building a floor under your retirement nest egg. Plus, how to find the right balance between spending and overdoing it. And later on, Tim's going to tell you some of the most common misconceptions he's heard over the years when it comes to annuities. We'll get to that and much, much more. But first things first, we say hello to the star of the show, the man of the hour, and my good buddy, Tim Wood. Tim, it is great to be with you. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, Kevin. I hope you're doing well, and I hope everyone out there is doing well and enjoying this fall weather, enjoying the football season, and, let's get going.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you, man. Anytime I'm not at the ball field with my son for his 10U baseball team or watching my 4-year-old daughter kicking a soccer ball around, my Saturdays and Sundays are essentially spent on the couch. But I got to tell you, watching game day, I kudos to ESPN. What they did for Lee Corso a few weeks ago was amazing.
Awesome.
But it's just a little bit different without the coach, isn't it?
It is. I absolutely, but it's still a great show. But yeah, it's always going to be different. And, it's curious. I wonder if Saban is going to wind up evolving into that position, or if he's going to get the bug and wind up being coaching again. My guess is he's going to be coaching again.
I got a feeling it just seems like these guys, it's all they know. They don't know life off the sidelines. And I'm kind of with you, especially if Alabama has a down year. I think you might start hearing Saban's name rumbling around. I don't know. It wouldn't be the most shocking thing I've ever seen in college football. Let's put it that way.
No. Well, and pros too. I mean, look at Pete Carroll. He doesn't need to work anymore for the money. I'm sure he is very well set for the rest of his life and probably his kids and grandkids. Mm-hmm. But here he is coaching again at, what is he, 74 or something? I mean, he's they can't help it. That's what they do. But that's where their passion lies. You and I have talked about that before, finding something. I mean, heck, Pete Carroll's retired, but in retirement, what did he want to do? He wanted to do it again.
Right.
So, that's awesome. I think that's great.
Yeah, I do too. We'll see how it all plays out. It should be interesting. Again, if Bama, and I think we all can agree, we're all just rooting against Bama at this point. Right?
Most everybody. Yeah, I know I am. Yeah.
Well, we'll see how it shakes out. I know after week one, when they lost on the road, man, there was a lot of, hey, what's going on? How many more years is that contract we gave old Kalen DeBoer? 2031, folks. It's a long way to go. So we'll see how it all shakes out. Well, listen, Tim, let's dive right into it, man, because we have a lot of great stuff to get to on the show here today. And I wanted to start out with, sort of comparing, putting a retirement plan and the foundation to what we have in our houses. Obviously, we know the key to having a stable house is having a stable foundation. But Tim, let's talk about some of the things, some of the key elements to sort of building that financial foundation as a lot of our listeners approach their retirement.
You're talking about a floor. Yeah. Basically, that's what you're talking about is a financial floor. And yeah, that's one of the very first things I talk to anybody about once we've got all of the details we need in the fact finder and we're transitioning in the end of that appointment to what do we need to look for them. We talk about what's your floor. Now, what does your floor already include? Everybody pretty much out there's floor already includes Social Security. So that's going to be step one of your floor is you've already got Social Security. And if you are one of the lucky less than 20% of people in this country now that have a pension, there's part two to your floor. Do you have anything else that pays you a guaranteed income? Again, people have heard me say this and they think I'm misspeaking. I'm not. I'm not talking about an if-come. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about, well, I've got an account and I'm just pulling money out and I hope it's going to last for the rest of my life. That's an if-come. That is not a guaranteed income. That is not included in part of this floor. So Yeah, we need to have a floor, and that floor needs to be equal to what your expenses are. So you need to know and have total confidence that for the rest of your life, even if inflation goes up, that's fine. We're going to have a floor that's going to take care of your expenses, and making sure of that. The way that we do that, again, let's look at what your social is going to be, what your spouse's social going to be. Do you have any pensions? Do you have any rental properties that's paying you? Do you have any spousal maintenance that comes in? I mean, there's anything that's going to come in, period, for as long as you're alive. That's guaranteed income. That's your floor. Okay, great. Let's add all that up. Okay, there's your number. Let's say that number comes to $30,000. Okay. What your expenses are $40,000. Well, where are you pulling that $10,000 from? Oh, I'm just pulling it from whatever account. Okay, well, what happens if the market's down 3, 4, 5 years in a row, which could happen? Mm-hmm. People, we're at historic highs. That's a possibility. You know, we're in a bubble. What happens to every bubble ever? What happens when we hit a historic high historically every single time ever historically? Be prepared. But anyway, knowing that you've got a guaranteed income to cover that extra $10,000. If your social and everything's only going to pay you $30,000, but your expenses are $40,000, then guess what? Right now, you need a guaranteed income to cover that $10,000 gap. That gets you a real floor. Now, we also need to think about, well, what about 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What about if we get to a point where gas is $5, $6 a gallon again, and milk's $10 a gallon, and eggs are $15 a dozen? What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. You need to have some more income that you can turn on in the future that you can put into a plan now, and it's just going to constantly gain, nonstop, contractually guaranteed until you turn it on in the future to overcome that. That's how you have a stable floor that can last long-term in retirement.
Let's talk about some of the things maybe that can weaken that floor a little bit. I mean, I would imagine inflation, rising healthcare costs. These are some of the things that can probably, again, we talk about taking a big chunk out of your nest egg. Those seem like at least a good couple of places to start when it comes to things that could weaken that solid foundation, right?
Sure. Those are two of the biggest, and the potential for Social Security benefits to be cut. That's another big one. Anything that could, if you've got rental properties, well, I mean, people could move out. You could wind up needing to put a new roof on the property, So yeah, there's absolutely things that we need to plan for. And that's why I don't tell people to put everything into one of these income plans. I will never tell anybody to do that, because you need to have an emergency fund. You always need to have an emergency fund when things happen. But yeah, things like that are going to come up. Changes in tax laws could happen. Changes in Social Security laws or Medicare laws. I mean, there's a million things that could happen over the next 20 to 30 years. It's just trying to make the most solid plan you can now, as smart tax-wise as you can. So when anything happens, you can make sure, again, going back to that first thing, the floor. Making sure that, okay, if your floor needs to go up by $5,000 a year because such and such happened, okay, let's turn on that one income plan. That's going to pay us another $5,000. Boom, we're there. Okay, great. Well, something else happens, turn on another one. Making sure you've got a plan in place so when things do happen, because people, they will. When things happen, you've got a plan and you can just turn it on at a moment's notice.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when life is going to happen, especially as we approach our retirement. And if you'd like to learn more about the key elements of building that floor under your retirement nest egg, Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement, they are here to help. And folks, we do have teammates standing by to get you on Tim's calendar today. Schedule that complimentary 15-minute discovery call. Let Tim Wood lay out some ideas, give you some thoughts about what he has when it comes to planning for your financial future. And again, if you'd like to get on his calendar, we can make that happen here today. Pick up the phone, 800-913-SAFE. Again, folks, that number is 800-913-7233. Or you can always contact Tim and his team online. It's safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. Well, Tim, I know this is something you and I have talked quite a bit on this show about, the fear of spending your retirement money. And actor Seth Rogen, well, he can certainly relate, as he explained recently on the Armchair Expert podcast.
I'm afraid I'm going to die with too much money. That is my fear. I don't have children, and I'm afraid I'm going to die and be like, I could have had a good place on the beach. I'm saying, like, I don't want to die with like $10 million in the bank that I could have spent doing fun, alive things. You know what I mean?
A jet to Paris on a whim.
Yeah, exactly. I gotta look back. I could have been jetting.
I like that. Doing fun, alive things. That's a really interesting way of putting it in perspective, isn't it?
It is.
Well, Seth Rogen obviously is talking about having too much money and trying to figure out what to do with all of it. So, Tim, how do you help your clients really find that balance between enjoying retirement, something we've tried to get to for 20, 30, 40 years, but also making sure those income sources don't run out?
This is, again, something that I talk to people about in the Fact Finder appointment, and the terms I use is you don't want to overlive your retirement. Which what that means is you don't want to be that guy that spends it all in the first 5 years of retirement thinking, oh, I'll worry about it later. Well, son, later's coming. You need to make sure you've got a plan. So you don't want to overlive it, but you also, like he was talking about, like Seth was talking about, you don't want to underlive it. You don't want to, sit there and scrimp and scrape and hold every penny and all that, and then you die. Okay, well, so for example, in my seminars, one of the things I talk about is, use your retirement money for your retirement. Don't leave it for your kids, because I have people all the time that come in and say, well, I wish I had done this and wish I had done that. I wish I had joined the country club. I wish I had bought a boat. I wish I had, done this. You need to do those things, because I tell you what, if you don't, as soon as you die and your kids get the inheritance, guess what they're going to do? They're joining the country club. They're buying the boat. They're going on the Europe trip. They're doing everything. So making sure that we've got a plan so that you can have the fun that you want to have while you still can, again, while you're in those go-go years, y'all hear me talk about all the time, and, having that long-term plan. So once you get into your older years, you can have the medical expenses covered of whatever it is that could come, or the inflation or whatever. But that's a big thing. I mean, I agree with Seth, man. I mean, I love my daughter to death, but do I need to leave her millions of dollars? No, she can make her own millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I want to make sure, and that's one of the things my wife and I are planning for is, we're doing more and more trips now while we can, while we want to, while we feel up to it, while we're healthy. It's the time to go. So I totally agree with him, man. I mean, leaving money to someone is great, but and this is also a little bit of a side note, if you're going to leave money to someone, make sure you're doing that smartly. Mm-hmm. In a retirement plan is not a good way to pass along money. That is literally the worst way, because in Secure 2.0, now they've got to have all of that withdrawn from the account and taxes paid on it within 10 years, which can impact their tax rate overall. There's all kinds of negative things. Make sure that you're doing it wisely.
When it comes, we've talked about, shifting that mindset from accumulation to distribution and really allowing yourself to spend that money. Tim, have you also found that maybe there's some emotional or psychological reasons that it's harder for some folks than others? I mean, again, you've put this money aside. You've been in that super saver mode for decades. And then trying to get that, okay, now I'm allowed to. And part of that, obviously, is having that in a written plan, knowing you can. But is it just, have you just found, folks, that it's way harder than others to convince themselves that this is actually okay?
Absolutely. And a lot of that psychologically, just in my experience, comes back to people's long-term backgrounds. I find a lot of people, when they were younger, it could be kids or it could be in their own adult lives, but younger, didn't have anything, had very little, came, as they say, came from nothing, built up. A lot of those people, it is harder because in your psyche, you can remember those days. I can remember those days with my wife when we were younger. Yes, we went through some financial hard times when we, in my book, we talked about my wife and I both worked at Disney. Disney's a great place to work, but they don't pay very much. And, when you're trying to live a life and have a daughter and do all that, and you're trying to live, it's hard. And then when you get to a point in life where you do, like you said, when you're starting to take and do things with all of what you've saved your whole life, yeah, that's always in the back of your mind. So I do talk to people about that, and I see it all the time. The underlivers in their retirement, for the most people, are the ones that have that background of, challenging childhoods, or are really rough when they were younger and married, and those kind of things. And, those are the ones that it's really hard to get them to make that transition and start doing it. But as you said, once we put something down on paper, once I can show them on paper, right here it is, boom, right there, black and white, contractually from an A-rated company, here's what they're going to do. And you put that with your Social Security, with all of these other things, there's the plan. And they just go, oh, so you're saying I'm going to get $4,500 a month, every month for the rest of my life, no matter how long I live? Yes. That means you can spend it this month, and guess what? It's coming next month. And if you spend it next month, it's coming the next month. It makes it a lot easier to spend when you see it on paper, and you know that you've got a plan, and you don't have to worry about it running out.
Well, if that sounds like you, maybe you're worried about spending too much or not enough in your retirement. And if you've been holding back from spending because of that fear, well, let Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement help you put that plan in place so you have that income stream. You have those spending plans built into there as well. If you'd like to learn more, this is not something you want to try to do on your own, folks. Let Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement help. And again, we have teammates standing by to schedule that complimentary 15-minute discovery call with Tim today at 800-913-SAFE. Again, that's 800-913-7233, or online anytime. It's safemoneyretirement.com. Again, that website, safemoneyretirement.com. All right, coming up next, we know annuities often stir up very strong feelings one way or the other. So Tim will tell you some of the biggest misconceptions he's heard surrounding those streams of income. Plus, what to watch out for if you're set to inherit an IRA. Don't go anywhere. We have a lot more of the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood coming up right after this.
Welcome to Willie's Wings, home of the secret sauce.
I'll take a dozen wings. Oh, by the way, I love that sauce. What's in it?
Can't tell you.
Why not?
It's a secret.
While many financial advisors claim to have that secret sauce, they really don't. In fact, their sauce is so good, why are they keeping it a secret? Tim Wood of Safe Money Retirement doesn't keep anything a secret. He knows there's much more to retirement planning than stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Tim will develop a strategy designed specifically for you. It's your own secret sauce for retirement. Call 800-913-SAFE. That's 800-913-7233, or online at safemoneyretirement.com.
Fine, you want to know what's in the sauce?
Absolutely.
Tablespoon of paprika.
Really?
Well, thanks again for joining us here on the Safe Money Retirement Show with certified financial fiduciary Tim Wood. My name's Kevin McAlpin. Oh, by the way, Tim, also the founder and president of Safe Money Retirement. He's also the star of the show as well. And of course, we're glad to have you with us here on the program, talking all things retirement, helping you put those pieces of your retirement puzzle together, get that solid plan in place. And again, if you'd like to learn more, Tim and his team are online at safemoneyretirement.com. Again, it's safemoneyretirement.com. Tim, I found this article very interesting, and it sort of blew me away that out of 100% of folks they surveyed, they said almost 70% they fear running out of money in retirement more so than they do the Grim Reaper. That is sort of hard to believe when you think about it. And I know we've heard some talk, is a recession looming? Some listeners out there might be turning to annuities for that source of guaranteed income. But we know that annuities can be very complex, and people's opinions of them really can range from one end of the spectrum to the other. So, Tim, talk to us a little bit about some of the mistakes you see when people try to buy an annuity on their own. Where can they really get themselves in trouble?
Yeah, annuities are great. So first, let me just real quick, and in my book, again, if y'all don't have a copy of my book, get a copy of my book, because I've got a whole section that goes into the history of annuities, because people do have such misconceptions. People, do y'all realize annuities go back at least as far as Jesus?
Wow.
Because that's how they paid the Roman soldiers once they retired, was in annuities. So at least 2,000 years these things have been around, so they are not new, and they very well could be much older. We don't know. So anyway, what are the issues people come across with annuities? Well, number one is flat out not knowing what the heck an annuity is and how it works, not understanding how it works. I have people all the time. Had an appointment earlier today. The lady's got 4 very large annuities, very large annuities. I said, okay, well, does it do this? Does it do that? What are the fees? No clue. None. I don't know. Does it pay me an income? I don't know what the fees. No clue. So knowing what you've got and making sure that you're with someone that can explain exactly what they are, exactly what they do, and making sure that you're in the right one would be the second thing. A lot of people that are just negative on annuities, and I get it, and I talk about, again, in my book, I would not touch a variable annuity with a 10-foot pole. None. I don't deal with any variable annuities ever. So making sure you're in the right one, because variable annuities can have really high fees. So, and you can also lose money in them. Why would you want to be in that plan? And that's why there's a lot of people saying, oh, well, you don't want to be in an annuity. They've got really high fees. Let me tell you something. A fixed annuity, any fixed annuity, the base annuity, there are no fees. None. If you get a fee in a fixed annuity, it's because you chose a benefit, and that benefit has a fee attached to it. So, for example, if you're getting a guaranteed income plan, yes, you're going to have a small fee, but the reason you're paying that fee is because you're paying for a guaranteed income benefit that will pay you as long as you're breathing, and maybe your spouse as well, depending on how it's set up. But not understanding how annuities work and having the wrong kind of annuity, and then also failing to factor in inflation. So a lot of people, if they get an annuity, and even if it's an income annuity, that's fine, but let's just put ourselves in an imaginary situation right now and say you're 75. And say at 65 is when you retired and you started an income annuity, and that was enough to cover your income at 65. Well, do you think what you got 10 years ago is enough now? No. Inflation's huge, people. You need to make sure that you have got enough to where, and inflation, newsflash, it's not stopping. So you've got to make sure that you've got enough. If inflation keeps going and keeps churning, I mean, we're sure hoping that things that are happening are going to keep lowering rates, but making sure that you've got a plan for that, but not factoring in inflation is a really big thing that people have a problem with annuities, because again, if you've got just enough to cover you, even if you did it right now, if I set you on one right now, Kevin, and you were going to retire and we had enough to cover your expenses right now, great. Well, you can have a great rest of 2025. What are you going to do in 2035? Guarantee you stuff's going to cost more. Where's that money coming from? You got to have a plan for it. And if you don't have a plan, that's why you need to sit down with someone and look over everything. And I mean, the annuities that you've got now, maybe they need to be replaced with something else that's got higher rates or better payouts or whatever it is. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, there is a lot of negativity about annuities in general, and annuities aren't always the right fit. I mean, we talk about them a lot on this program, but they're not always the right fit. And I also never tell people to put everything they've got into annuities, ever. I mean, we need to figure out, what do you need to do to make sure that we're accomplishing your goals? That's what needs to be in there, and whatever that goal is.
Let me ask you this too. How often do you see somebody that comes to you, maybe it's a second opinion, maybe it's someone that put a plan in place years ago and goes, well, I've got this annuity, I don't really know what I signed. I feel like that's a common thing that you probably hear quite often is, I have an annuity. I really don't know how it works or what I, committed to long term.
Yes, all the time.
Wow.
And I tell people, bring in your most recent statement, because I'm going to be able to get everything I need. And when I say bring in, it could be email me. Right. I mean, people are listening literally all over the country. We're licensed in 27 states. So I'm talking to people all over the country. Send it to me. Let me see your most recent statement. I can decode it. I know what all of those numbers mean. I know what the account value or the accumulated value and the surrender value and the income account value I know what all that stuff means. I can explain it to you. I can explain what you've got. I can explain what your fees are. I can explain what your options are. And we can look at what you've got. Is it the best thing for you right now? Or should we look at replacing it with something else that might be a higher rate, a higher payout, more in line? Because some people do just completely have the wrong product. There's some people that I see them quite often that have one type of annuity, but they think they've got another type. So when we sit down and I actually explain how it's going to work, they go, that's not what I thought I got. Well, congratulations, that's what you got.
Right.
That's it. Let's get you into what you might need. So, just sitting down and looking at what they've got and being able to help them decode what it is and figure out if it's the right thing.
Maybe you are confused by annuities. If that sounds like you, I promise you folks, you're not alone. Or perhaps you're listening to us today and you bought an annuity on your own, and maybe you're wondering if it is the right fit for your long-term financial future. Well, if you'd like to learn more, you'd like to sit down with somebody who does this day in and day out and can help provide a little more clarity when it comes to annuities, or perhaps you're just that person that says they're not for me. Maybe you've heard some mixed messaging and you don't think it's right for your retirement plan. Let Tim Wood and his team at Safe Money Retirement provide a little more clarity as you move forward. Pick up the phone. We have teammates standing by to get you on Tim's calendar to schedule that complimentary, no obligation consultation at 800-913-SAFE. Again, that number is 800-913-7233. Online anytime. SafeMoneyRetirement.com. Again, it's SafeMoneyRetirement.com. Well, Tim, I know we talk a lot about baby boomers on this show, and rightfully so. Baby boomers, it's estimated, will pass on at least $84 trillion with a T, $84 trillion to younger generations by 2045. That's why some are calling this the Great Wealth Transfer. And some of that money will be passed on in the form of IRAs. And recently, tax guru Ed Slott told Morningstar, you better make sure it's in a Roth IRA.
Those are the best assets to inherit, because under this 10-year rule for beneficiaries, most beneficiaries, non-spouses, have to empty the inherited account now after the Secure Act by the end of the 10th year after death. Same thing with an inherited Roth, but they can keep that inherited Roth growing for the full 10 years. They never have to touch it and take it out, all that accumulated growth and compounding, absolutely income tax free.
All right, so Tim, let me ask you, what are you seeing when it comes to inherited IRAs? Are clients you deal with seeing the value of setting up that tax-free future when it comes to their loved ones?
In many cases, they are, if they can. Let me put it this way. If I can get them to sit down and have a holistic view of what's going on, yes, absolutely, it makes sense. And I know Ed personally. I've sat right there with him multiple times and had discussions. He is a huge proponent of Roth plans because Ed is a CPA. That was his initial. He was a CPA and then kind of got into tax planning and retirement and kind of moved that way. But he's a CPA by trade. I love his stuff. I recommend anything that Ed Slott does. But yes, I do see that people have an issue when you get that inherited IRA. Every single one that comes through, I always talk about possibly doing a Roth conversion. Now, does it make sense in every situation? Absolutely not, because if you do a Roth conversion, that means you've got to pay all the taxes. So in some cases, does it make sense to do a complete Roth conversion right now? Yes, in some situations it does. In some situations, it makes sense to move that into a plan that allows you to do what they call partial Roth conversions. That's what I do a lot for people with these inherited plans, is put them into an IRA, and it allows you every single year to determine how much do you want to convert. It can be anywhere from 0 to 100%. And what we do is I basically tell people somewhere around Thanksgiving, sit down, add up what's your total income going to be for the year. Then pull up the tax table for that year and see where you're going to fall and see how much room. Like, for example, if you're in the 22% bracket, okay, great. How much room do you have before you would jump up to the 24% bracket? That's how much we can convert, and you're still going to be not paying any more tax. You're not going to bump up to the higher tax bracket. That's how we do that. And every single year we can do as much as we can do and get all that converted. Because if you don't have it converted by the time you're at RMD age, you're going to have to start taking that out. Plus, with inherited IRAs, there's another thing that we have to think about, and that's what Ed was talking about. You have to have all that done within 10 years. So that's another thing that we now have to factor in with Secure 2.0 is, when did you get this? When did the person die? That's really when the 10 years starts, is when did the person die? Okay, well, they died in January of 2021. Okay, you've got to have this all done by January of 2031. Done. You've got to either have the money pulled out and all the tax paid or converted to, or whatever we're going to do, it's got to be done by then. That's it. That's the bottom line. Now, there are a few exceptions for spouses, for people with disabilities, for minor children. There are a few exceptions. But for the most part, unless it's that, you've got 10 years, and that's something that we have to factor in when we're looking specifically at inherited IRAs.
And obviously, we've talked about, legacy and estate planning on this show in episodes in the past. And some of those conversations can't be the easiest to have. But Tim, when it comes to starting those conversations, how do you, counsel your clients to sit down? Again, we've talked about it. These are some of the most important conversations you're going to have, but also, legacy planning without it feeling forced or overwhelming or more complicated than it has to be.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. People don't want to talk about their death, their spouse's death, their parents' death, their children's death. They don't want to talk about it. And I get it. I don't either. I mean, you and I have never just sat around and talked about our death. I've never done that with anybody.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, it's a really hard conversation. And y'all have heard me say this before. I literally have tissues in every office here in my office because I have people completely break down. Well, I just couldn't go on if my spouse died. Well, I know it's going to be hard, but you are going to go on. You are going to get through it. It's going to be awful, but you're going to go on. What's the plan? What's the tax plan? What's the tax ramifications? When your dad passes and you get all of that money that's in his IRA, that's all pre-tax money. What's the plan? Sitting down and making a plan. What do you want to, and here's all of that aside, here's what it boils down to. What do you want to happen when you're gone? Make a plan for it. We might need, do you have a will? Do you have an estate plan? Do you have life insurance? I mean, that's the best way to pass, talking about Ed Slott, he says that's absolutely the best way to pass wealth on is through life insurance. Because, for example, especially at our age, Kevin, we're a little younger. We're not quite at retirement age yet. If we were to buy life insurance right now, we could absolutely buy it for pennies on the dollar. So if I wanted to make sure my daughter got $250,000 whenever I pass, I could get a life insurance for pennies on the dollar and, put a chunk of money in that's going to pay her $250,000 tax-free whenever I'm gone. She doesn't have to worry about taxes on that money ever. So there's a lot of inherited IRA issues that come along with the new Secure Act. Again, just need to sit down with someone that understands all the nuances of the law and the tax code and all that stuff and make sure you've made a wise plan.
Well, if you find yourself part of the great wealth transfer and you want to make sure your legacy is tax efficient, this is obviously something you want to stay in front of, folks. And it's not something you want to kick that can down the road any further. Tim Wood and his team at Safe Money Retirement, they help folks day in and day out plan for these very situations. And if you'd like to learn more, we have teammates standing by to get you on Tim's calendar. Schedule that 15-minute discovery call by calling 800-913-SAFE. Again, folks, that number, 800-913-7233. Or you can always visit Tim and his team online, safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. Well, Tim, time flies when we're having fun. I think we've had another great show here today. And before we do run out of time, my man, I'd love to leave the floor all yours for the final word.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Another great show. Hope everyone has a great week. Look forward to seeing you back here next week. A couple things that I want you to make sure that you take from this week. Number one, annuities. Are they for everybody? No, they are not. But you need to understand how they work, how the different kinds work. What's the difference between a fixed and a variable annuity? What's a fixed indexed annuity? What's a fixed indexed annuity with a guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefit rider? What do all these things mean? You need to sit down with someone because it may be right for your situation. It may not. You need to sit down with someone that can look at everything and see if one is right for you and explain exactly how it would work if it is right. And the other thing I'd like to go back to is that audio that we played from Seth about, not leaving a whole bunch of money once you're gone, making sure that you don't underlive or overlive retirement. And how do you do that? Make a plan. I know I beat that drum to death every single week, people, but it's super important to make sure that you've got a plan for whatever's going to happen in the future, so that way that you know you can have a safe money retirement.
The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Obviously, by contacting us now, you are only taking the first step towards protecting your retirement. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified, licensed insurance professional. It is important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Interest and other guarantees in annuity contracts are subject to the claims-paying ability of the insurance carrier that issued the contract. The tax consequences of annuity income should be considered with the help of a licensed tax professional. Rates and returns mentioned on this program may vary based on state availability and are subject to change without notice.